Hello, everyone, and welcome to the pilot episode of the Tailwind Talks podcast. My name is Devan Schaly-Brumbaugh. I am the Director of Leasing and Marketing for Tailwind Group, and with me is...
Hey everyone, Brandon Smith. I'm the Vice President of Operations and Development at Tailwind Group.
So today we're going to be doing the pilot episode of the podcast. And I thought we could start out with maybe just us discussing a little bit about our role, tenure, progression here at Tailwind, just so people could get to know us a little bit better. And we'll go in order. So you've been here much longer than I have.
Much longer.
But to clarify, we've been in student housing for the same amount of time.
Okay. Good clarification. Yeah, I am actually coming up. This summer will be my 10-year anniversary with Tailwind. So I had one other job after college for about 2 years, and I've been with Tailwind ever since. My progression is I started as a leasing agent right here in this building at Rent MSU. And that was outside of College Town, Mankato. That's all the rentals that Tailwind had at the time. So I leased about 90 houses, I think, every fall. And Tailwind was so small at the time, I actually wasn't even a full-time employee. I was a 1099 contractor. So I would start leasing in the fall, and when the last lease was signed, I actually had to get a summer job because they couldn't pay me and there was nothing for me to do over the summer until turnover. So I did that from 2014 to kind of the middle of the leasing season in 2016. And at that time, that's when Tailwind started expanding. We bought our property in East Lansing. We bought our property in Iowa City. And they had a need for basically like a project manager to not only oversee the construction and renovations that we were doing, but also help bring in the new staff, oversee leasing efforts, start implementing our management company efforts and things like that. So the leasing was really comfortable for me, and everything else was brand new. I had never overseen construction, project management. I never really worked on the operations side of property management. So those were probably the most formative years of my time at Tailwind because I had no choice but to learn how to do those things because I was the only one there and not on my own. We did bring in a staff, but getting it set up and training was kind of a requirement of the job. So I did the East Lansing project through 2017. I rolled right into the project in Wyoming in 2017-18. At the same time, we were doing the Quarters Ames, rolled into the Quarters Vermilion. So through that time, I was kind of traveling around a lot and overseeing just the project as a whole, from the acquisition to getting it stabilized. And through that period is when we also started doing some acquisitions of stable properties like the Griff, like Bloomington. And that's when I started to really get more involved in the operational side, doing the due diligence and helping the teams get off the ground with what's our leasing strategy and our management strategy, market strategy, and things like that. So that led to 2020, where we had grown to the point of we had no structured leadership and management outside of the four founding principles of Tailwind. And, we had reached a capacity where they couldn't really own the company and do all the visionary entrepreneurial stuff that they wanted, but also manage their respective departments. So they introduced our first senior leadership team, I guess to call it. And I was put into the VP of Operations and Development role, which is really funny because when I was doing the project management and traveling, if you would have said one day you're going to oversee the operations, it's the last thing I would have wanted to do, which not many people listening to this would probably think that because It's what I love the most now. But I just love the chase of, looking at a new deal and then getting to move on to the next thing when it was done. That was really fun for me. Through that period, I learned to love to work with all the people and to develop those relationships with our staff. So when that time came in 2020 and they asked if I would be willing to oversee and take on the VP of Operations role, I said yes, not knowing at all what it would become to what it is today. So having been doing that for almost the last 4 years has been the most fulfilling and amazing part of what I've done at Tailwind, because it involves all of our people and all the relationships that I've been able to form in that role.
Well, and I think that's the unique part about your team and like being on your team is the operations piece of the business is so big. And so we have a lot of teams within that, but also we connect so effortlessly with the other teams here at Tailwind, which I think so for people that thrive in highly collaborative, very people-driven aspects of the business, it is a really good place to be.
Yeah. And on the development side, I guess I didn't talk about that. You know, we're not a huge development company from like a new construction standpoint, but with that project management experience, just mainly being involved in helping with strategy on our value add renovation side. And, you know, we have a team on the development side now that is doing more new construction and looking at new deals like that. I am less and less involved with that as we continue to grow, but we have really good people in place for that now.
Favorite renovation projects?
Ooh, man, East Lansing was so, I can't say favorite, but so memorable because just truthfully, we had no clue what we were doing in really any aspect. I mean, I think we went like $4 to $5 million over budget on our renovation costs. We changed the design midway through the project, probably 4 or 5 times. We would literally walk into an apartment and be like, let's remove this wall. And we decided we don't like it anymore. And it was a total fire drill. And it was the first project ever where, you know, it was an occupied building. So we were moving tenants and they had to relocate, and I could sit here for hours and tell East Lansing stories about the tenants because it was not a traditional student housing property when we bought it. It was largely conventional. So we had some very interesting residents, and then we also had some residents that had lived there for 20 to 25 years, and to ask those people to move out of their home, it wasn't just an apartment, was really challenging. It all came together though. East Lansing is still in our portfolio and, you know, one of our highest performing properties operationally. We've filled it to 100%, I think, every year since we started, which is really amazing considering it was built in, I think, 1968. I mean, it's by far our oldest property.
Yeah, that is really cool. Well, I'll talk a little bit about me.
You go.
So as I said, I'm Devan. I'm the Director of Leasing and Marketing. I have been here since December 2019. Actually, you and Colleen were the ones that interviewed me, and I have said multiple times since then that I definitely thought I didn't get the job, specifically because of my inability to read your reaction. So this year will mark 10 years in student housing for me. Started as a community assistant type position in Lawrence while I was at KU studying music therapy. Really fell in love with the sales, the marketing, the people. Ended up moving over to, at the time, Peak Campus, now Peak Made Real Estate, and then was a CA for them, and then ended up getting into their summer internship program where they send CAs to different properties to work for the summer to help finish the lease up with turn, and simultaneously trained to be a leasing manager. So that, I would say, you know, when you talk about formative moments in your career, I would say that was definitely one of the biggest ones for me. I worked at a 1,700 bed property in California and had never really ever spent time in California or Los Angeles prior to that. And from there, I took a leasing manager position back home in Ohio. Just an opportunity to be closer to family after being in Kansas for school and out in California, actually where I met my husband, which, fun fact about both of us, we met our significant others through the business, which is really cool. And then moved around a lot after that. You know, I was a national leasing specialist, that's probably where I got most of my multi-market experience was, you know, those assignment-based opportunities. Had an assistant manager experience, new development property manager, and then I was looking for an opportunity to move back home, really plant roots after a ton of moving, and ended up taking the property manager position at the Griff. Did that for about a year, a little less than a year, and then moved into the CLM position, first corporate leasing manager, which was always what I wanted to do. And then from there, did that for about a year and a half before I moved into the director of leasing position, and then last summer moved into director of leasing and marketing.
Yeah, and it's funny you say they couldn't read me because I've now heard, I think you're number 7 on the list of people that I've interviewed that thought that I did not like them or thought the interview went terribly. So clearly I have to work on my body language in interviews.
You just need to give them a little you got this, you're doing great. But be able to say that without saying that.
Yeah, I might need some training on that. But it is funny because you applied for the property manager role, and after the interview, Colleen and I talked, and I'm like, I don't know that's really what she even wants to do. All your experience in traveling and leasing, we're she could probably do it. She would be a good fit, but is it the best fit? And, we ended up hiring you, but saying there's probably something else she should be doing. And, the corporate leasing manager position didn't even exist at that point. We weren't really at a scale where it was needed or necessary. But it's cool to see that progression because we actually talked about that when we ended up hiring you at that role, that it's probably not the role where it best met your ability and talent. So,
yeah. And it was building it out for the first year before we expanded the team to 3 was, I think, a really challenging year in general in terms of figuring out what everyone's expectations were, what your expectations were, our regional property managers, our site team members, and then trying to balance all of those things. And, we, as we still are now, we're in, a rapid pace of acquisition too. So trying to learn portfolio, but also stay on top of it as we were growing. It was a wild time.
Talk about your first year as a CLM when it was just you. I think we had 16 properties, just you.
Well, so I interviewed the Friday before my wedding, which you came to, and you told me afterwards that you knew that day, but you didn't tell me, which I think actually made me mad because then I got...
Trying to keep the focus on your wedding.
But I got married on a Sunday, and then we left for our Plan C honeymoon because it was 2020, a lot going on at the time, so we had to kind of shift plans around. But I was literally on the way to the airport when you texted me, and then you called me, and you were like, yeah, I've known, but I didn't, and I was really mad because you wouldn't tell me. And right then and there, we set a goal, visit every property by Christmas, and I don't think we really knew what I had committed to at the time. And that was it, was, setting really lofty goals and then realizing this is big, but I really can't think of anything that we verbalized that we wanted to do that we didn't do.
Yeah. I think in, anyone that pioneers a brand new position, you're just figuring it out as you go. It's kind of what I talked about earlier, and the expectations of what you can do in your head don't always match the reality of what's actually you're capable of doing just from a capacity standpoint. So you didn't mention the comment that you made while we were on the phone, but I think maybe offended your husband.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. No, go ahead.
I don't remember the quote. But.
So, yeah, you texted me and you were like, hey, I know you're getting ready to leave for your honeymoon. Do you have 5 minutes? And I was like, of course I do. And I wasn't even really thinking about what it could have been about at that time, so I honestly forgotten about the fact that I interviewed on Friday. Knew I was going to be out for the next week and a half to 2 weeks after that. And you offered me the job, and I was like, this is better than getting married while my husband is driving us to the airport for our honeymoon. But I think he knew that I was just, I think I convinced him that I was just caught up in the moment. Well, let's transition a little bit from talking about our careers, progression, roles, and I think the production team has actually put together some funny questions for us that we have not read and don't know anything about, and we're just going to answer some of those on the fly. So I think we'll do that next.
If you could swap lives with anyone in Tailwind for a day, who would it be and why?
I would go with John Fanning, mainly because I want to know what it's like to have that much energy every second of every day.
I think he might be the only person that is louder than me, naturally. I think Zach Krubowski, because I think it would be really fun to get people excited and want to work here.
Who would be your dream guest to have on this podcast?
Are you gonna go industry or non-industry?
Probably not.
Okay.
Elon Musk?
And what would we do with that? What would we talk about with
I don't
that?
know. I just think he's crazy interesting.
Okay.
Really interesting guy.
I would say, I think Connor Price, because we both like listening to his music. There's something that we could like both talk about.
Okay.
Elon, I wouldn't know what to talk with him about.
I don't even know what he looks like, but
Who?
Connor Price.
He's got brown hair. That's what I know.
Okay. Well, you'd do great on here then.
How can we get a studio on the 7th floor?
There's a good question.
Probably we'll have to stop growing because we need every available inch for our employees to be able to work. So I don't think that's going to happen. Hate to say.
If we expanded into a new building with more space, could we pencil in a studio?
I'd say if you can prove out your viewership over this first run, we'll see how it goes.
Part of that is you captivating an audience, so you gotta contribute to that too.
I thought this was the only one I'm on.
Right, and it's the first one, so you have to captivate an audience so that they...
So have I been
Build from
boring
there.
so far?
No, it's not what I said.
What is the most bizarre thing that you've experienced during turnover?
How many years have you done turn?
8 or 9?
I've-
Actually, more than that, because before I worked for Tailwind, I cleaned garbage out of the rental MSU houses. Before I worked for Tailwind, so probably like 10.
Trying to think. I mean, I found a lot of, like, left behind animals, which is really sad.
Ooh. I don't know, it's not really bizarre, but we had to clean out a basement of a house one time that had flooded. And there was a bunch of carpet in there that was like really moldy. And had to carry it up. And I coughed for like 6 months after. And I was pretty sure I had like a lifelong disease. Like, what's that lung disease?
Lung disease.
Yeah. When you like inhale chemicals, I don't know. I thought I was toast for life. I
But
got-
maybe that's what built up your immune system because you say that you never get sick now.
yeah.
You have a really good immune system.
But I pushed through it.
Okay. Trying to think of a better one, like not a sad one.
Most of them are really gross.
Yes.
And that's most of the turn stories.
I mean, I've had like refrigerators where the inside is so gunky you
Right.
like can't get them open. No, you can't get them open because the seal is so
What about
sticky.
refrigerators where they unplugged it and left like all their chicken and food in it and it's just rotted?
Mm. Yeah. Oh, my most bizarre turn story. I got a piano during turn for free. Like a baby, like a upright piano. I did move out inspections at the Griff, went into a unit, they were gone, and they had left an upright piano.
What
And
is an upright piano?
like,
Like just the piano?
yeah, like you probably think of like a grand piano, like the one that's like spread out. This is the one that just like sits upright. I'll find you a picture.
Music major.
It's a real piano, but I went in, I can't remember who was on my turn team, and there was a piano, and then we wheeled it all the way downstairs, and we kept it, in time for them to come and claim it, and they didn't. Now that's the talking piece, like when you go into the like front room of my house, they're like, oh, nice piano, and I'm like, got it from the Griff.
That's pretty sweet.
If you guys could visit only one Tailwind property for the rest of your life, which would it be and why?
Quarters Lawrence.
That's such a dangerous question. I feel like it'll cause much consternation.
That's why I say Quarters Lawrence, because it's in Lawrence, and I went to KU. That's an easy answer.
I'll just say 109 Tower because I love the weather in Miami.
Not in the summertime. It's hot.
I can deal with the heat.
No, that's a good one though. That's a safe one too. I think people would respect that answer.
What is one thing about you that others would be very surprised to know?
One thing that people would be surprised to know, I am afraid of the dark. I sleep with a light. Like in the hotel, when I travel and stay in hotels, I turn the bathroom light on and then crack the door. I'm afraid of the dark.
I guess we could stay with phobias. I'm deathly afraid of snakes. Like even a garter snake that truly could not do anything to you,
Can't do
I
it.
won't even get within 20 feet of it. At the zoo, if I ever go with my son, I won't even look in the caged exhibit. They freak me out that much.
That gives me a lot of ammunition for
Yeah, please.
future pranks and stuff.
If you guys were gonna open a brand new business together, what would it be for?
I don't know that we would go into business together. It's already tough enough as it is.
That's sad.
I'm kidding.
Short-term rental operators, various locations around the country, because then we can visit them, stay in them, and we have the property management background and sales.
I was going to say something more fun, like a bagel shop or something like that.
Bagel
but
shop. What are we
What
gonna do with that?
I don't know. I just like bagels.
I don't even like bagels.
Okay, well, see, that's why it was really hard to come up with things earlier that we had in common for a dream guest.
Yeah, me and Devin have actually talked about that. We have almost everything in common at work
And nothing.
and almost nothing in common in our personal life, yet we still get along really well.
It's true. We do talk about football a lot.
Yeah,
That's like the only
that
thing.
might be it.
Yep.
And I thought we found out one more one time. No.
That
Football.
was it.
Okay, this one might be a hard one, but what song reminds you of your work dynamic with each other?
Wrecking Ball, Miley
Get
Cyrus.
out! Get out! We'll go with it.
Yep.
What is one book that changed the way you work?
I mean, we have a Tailwind book club, but we don't read anything like development based. We read all like fiction books and stuff, so that's all I've read lately. You have to have at least like 2 or 3.
Yeah, I have quite a few. Like, what made the biggest impact? Probably it's a book called Leadership and Self-Deception. I think we actually still send it to all of our new hires. It's not business strategy or anything like that. It's really just how to handle relationships and with coworkers and how to view people and how to deal with things. That I think I've read it maybe 4 or 5 times because it's just always a good refresher.
Good one.
What is an unusual talent that you have?
I'm really good at booking planning trips and booking travel. Like I'm going to Iceland in the fall, and I have an Excel spreadsheet itinerary for like what we're doing on the road trip on our trip, and it's like my favorite thing to do.
I would say I have a very oddly, like, I can recall numbers and things from like many years ago.
Are we gonna tell them?
No,
Not the number, but we're getting a thumbs up from Nicole that we should.
that's fine.
I in passing said my husband's social security number, and
Oh,
you have
yeah.
it memorized.
Yeah, but I have to like, I can't just bring it. Like, I have to like, it's back there somewhere, and I can like recall it. That's
Yeah.
what's weird.
What is a conspiracy theory that you fully believe in?
Tupac's not dead.
Really?
I don't believe in conspiracy theories. It's just the only one I can think of.
Any Tailwind conspiracy theories?
Not that I've heard.
I don't know. I don't have a good one.
If you could display one sentence in the sky for an entire day, what would it say?
The Century Chaser's location. So I feel like that would get people really hyped.
I'll co-sign.
That'd be cool.
If you could choose one animal as a battle companion, what would it be and why?
Animal as a battle companion. It would not be my dog, Cannoli, because she's afraid of everything. Probably a bird, so that you would have like an aerial view on whatever your battle situation is.
How are you gonna win? Just fly away.
I just wanted it from all angles. I don't know how that's gonna help me win.
Silverback gorilla.
It
I like their fighting style.
feels very characteristically destructive. to
Yeah.
Fit your personality.
Yeah.
A bird versus
I think we'd win. And then you got me versus Devin. Because it's companion. Right?
Yes.
We're fighting each other in
And
this scenario.
my bird would win. How I will have yet to figure out, but I will.
If you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would you choose and why?
Spaghetti and meatballs. But you're carb avoidant, so
Well, that's yours. I would eat a 8-ounce fillet.
cooked
Medium rare.
Yes.
The only way to
The only
eat a
way
steak.
to eat it. Yes, I agree.
There's no debate there.
What is the most valuable piece of advice you've ever received?
Not a lot of people know this, but I went to school for music therapy originally, so I did a lot of like empathy training and stuff like that. And one of my professors in my second or third semester talked heavily about, the importance of putting things in perspective, that everybody's doing the best they can with the resources and what they have at that time. And so it's important to put yourself in that frame of mind of they're doing the best with the resources they have, the way they see to do it in that particular moment, and assuming the best of people. And that was a big piece of that empathy training that I did. And I think it was really, really formative.
We also went to like a really serious question, I feel. Well, I actually said this yesterday, so I'll just repeat it. But just growing up, stuff I learned from my dad in his many years running and owning a business, just that no matter where you're at, you should always be willing to do all the things that you're asking the rest of your team to do. So I think that's just a humility and a selflessness that no one is better than any task, and it's how you gain buy-in and respect and a team that really wants to work together. So that would be mine.
Yeah.
What is your go-to karaoke song?
You did karaoke at the LMS.
I did.
Yeah. Your kickball team did.
Oh yeah. Well, I wasn't really singing, but
Just
we are
more,
the champions.
more so taking the victory lap.
Yeah, we are the champions.
Well,
That would be my go-to.
we had our OBS last night, and I sang the national anthem.
Yeah, I heard.
Oh yeah, it was actually really funny because we were literally like right to it, and then I turned around and you were walking in the door.
I was walking down the block and I heard it from a block and a half away, and I was with a group of vendors, and I said, I guarantee that is our people singing. Didn't know, but just a hunch. Walked in and there you were. It was perfect.
It was not just me, but it was me, Emma, Dylan, and Kelsey.
Good show.
Yeah.
Well, you guys travel a lot for your job. What is something unforgettable from one of your travel experiences?
I mean, we did play beer pong that one time in College Station after closing. That was fun.
That was fun. Did we win a game?
No, we won. No, we lost. We definitely lost.
Well, they were college kids. It wasn't fair.
I will say, when we purchased the property in Lawrence last spring, I went in a day early with Christy, and I got to take her around town and like show her like the buildings that I went to class in, and like we went to the Orion Hotel, like went to the top floor like right as the sun was setting, and like looked over campus, and that was really pretty. And it was just a really full circle moment. Like that's where I started as a CA. Have traveled a ton and had different positions and things like that, and then to be back in Lawrence with her, her and I were still like getting to know each other and forming a relationship, and like showing her around was really fun. I think that whole week, like that acquisition was fun. Like you were there and Dave was there, and getting to like show you guys around Lawrence is probably like one of my favorite trips.
I have so many. All the closings we've ever done have been fun. It's always really awesome to bring on a new team and get them excited about what we're going to do. I guess a memorable one is when we closed on College Town, Oxford. It's not memorable for great reasons, but I had my 30th birthday a few days before, and me and college friends were up really late playing pickleball, and I took a big dive, and I smoked my face on a bench and hit my knee really hard. So I showed up to closing with a black eye, and my knee was so swollen I was limping around, and I just think the first impression that I made, they had to have wondered what in the world was going on, what is happening here. It was pretty ugly.
What is the craziest thing on your bucket list?
My husband and I are trying to visit every U.S. national park. I wouldn't say that's crazy, but it is a big undertaking. And then for my birthday, you got me a water bottle with all the national parks on it, and I get to put stickers on it as I go to them, which is really fun.
Great birthday gift.
It was really good.
Saw it on Instagram, sponsored ad. So whoever was running that account did a good job. I don't know. A lot of mine are sporting event related. I'd say going to the Masters is probably, I don't know if it's crazy or exciting, but it's probably at the top of my bucket list.
Yeah.
Never been. Well, with this being the pilot episode, I just wanted to talk through why are we doing it, what is Tailwind Talks, and things like that. It's really stemmed from a lot of stuff we've done in the past. So, Lane, our president, in the past, used to send out monthly communication called Tailwind Takeoff.
No, Tailwind Talks.
Tailwind
We actually
Talks.
stole the
Okay.
name directly from.
Sorry, I should have known that. Sorry, Lane. Tailwind Talks, which was just an update about what's going on at Tailwind, any big initiatives, maybe some leadership stuff, some culture stuff. Those communications are hard to get out regularly. But I also think, the marketing team, you guys have put together, and we've had various forms of newsletters. We've had company-wide newsletters and then specific leasing and marketing newsletters. Now we have a standardized all-company newsletter that goes out every month that highlights each department and things going on. So this is really just an extension of that. It's for the employees of Tailwind and people that follow Tailwind. It's just a look inside of what is going on as a company and what we're doing as a company. And why do I think it's relevant? Because we're a unique company in that we employ 340 people across probably 18 to 20 different states. And, we don't all come to the office together every day. We're all spread out across the country. Of course, we have meetings and we talk on Teams and things like that. But, this is a way to really just get a look inside of what's going on at Tailwind culturally, from a real estate standpoint. I think our goal is we're going to highlight leaders in the company and what they do for the company, what's their story, just so people can continue to feel connected and know what's going on at Tailwind and the people behind it. It'll be opportunity to highlight events that we have and upcoming, big changes if there's anything like that.
Which we're going to talk about a little bit later too.
Yep. And then, highlighting achievement, like our leasing belt winners, our social icon winners, properties that achieve 100%, acquisitions, and just all that kind of exciting stuff that it goes out in written form, but just a way to talk more about it and expand more about it from the people that are behind it. So it's really just a window of what's going on at Tailwind, largely for our employees, but, others in the industry that follow and like to see Tailwind's progression and what's going on. So that's our hope and goal with the podcast. And just a big shout out to the marketing team. Nikki came with this idea and really wanted to run with it. And I got pitched on this 3-4 weeks ago. And the fact that we're already doing the first one, obviously you guys are really excited about it and pushing it forward. So I just love innovation and new ideas. And it's so rare for me to, if someone's really excited about something, like to put out that fire, because I just think you got to let people go and run with, and there's a great idea. And I really think our employees are going to love this. And if that's all that it is, I think it's still an awesome thing to do. And I think others, within the student housing and real estate industry will find some value in it too. So.
Well, that's actually, I think, a good question to ask. There are some podcasts in our industry already. And have you thought at all about how you think this will differ, or how this can kind of fit in with some of the other things that exist already in the industry?
Yeah, there's definitely a few that I listen to regularly, and I think those are just more general and industry based, which is great for education, and they're bringing on guests. And Tailwind Talks it's in the name. I think it's an internal focus about Tailwind and our people, because that's really the most important thing to us and what we value the most. So it's giving opportunity to highlight our great people and all the amazing things that they're doing and hear people's stories that maybe you wouldn't get to otherwise. So I would say differing from others in the industry is just more of an internal focus on, pull the curtain back on Tailwind and what's going on around here.
I love that. And you said properties that hit 100%. Should we talk about the one that hit 100% over the weekend?
Let's.
Who was it?
The Quarters Lincoln.
Yes, I was testing you, but I knew you would know the
I
answer.
knew she was.
So I was checking some stuff on Saturday, and I had saw that it said they were at 100%. And I texted Kelsey, who's their corporate leasing manager, and I was like, did Quarters Lincoln hit 100%? And her response was, it wouldn't surprise me. And then, so that's really cool. And that's
absolutely crushed it this year.
They did. And it's cool, too, because, that is a really difficult market where I feel like enrollment challenges or something and supply. Oversupply is, I think, starting to become a big piece of it. But that property is much older. not near campus. So just to see what they've done this year has been really cool.
I mean, Lane talked about it at our summit this week. It starts with the team that's there, and you get the most out of a property by the attitude you put into it and the effort you put into it. So they're the furthest from campus. They're the oldest. Their amenities are not terrible, like you said, but they're dated, and the units are dated. They focus on the resident experience, their reputation, and making it a really fun place to live. And what that proves is when you focus on all those things, you can overcome those other obstacles of age and distance and things like that. Yeah, they're the first property in the market to hit 100%, I believe, and I don't think that property in the history has done it. At least, for sure, not since we've owned it, and in the several years prior. And looking at the historicals, I think it's the first time for them. So, huge shout out to them.
It's really cool.
Big accomplishment.
This is also the first property that we rebranded with our new rebrand process. We did that. What would that have been? The fall of
22 is when we bought it.
So it would have been the fall, October 2022.
Yeah.
We would have done it. Super fun. Well, I appreciate you talking a little bit about, backstory of kind of how we got here. I did want to take a moment and highlight the team behind the podcast, some of the people that have worked really, really hard over the last, month or so to put this together. As you mentioned, Nikib actually came to us with the idea. It was actually something that was discussed when we were interviewing him for the graphic design specialist position. And we kind of continued to talk about it through one-on-ones and stuff. And then I was just make it a goal for yourself to put together a business plan or a pitch. And then he put that together and did it for Nicole and I, and it was really great. Then I was I think we should just put it in front of you and get your thoughts. And you had really good feedback too. I mean, we tweaked some things. So Nikib is our head of production. And then Nicole, who I mentioned as well, who's Tailwind's graphic design manager, she, I would say, is more of a administrative manager. She made sure we had our water. She's been doing a lot of the sound checks. So she, I would say, is kind of the mom of the podcast, making sure the people are where they need to be and stuff's getting done and we have what we need, which is super important. You also mentioned that we are going to be interviewing Leasing Belt winners and social icon winners. So for those that don't know, we give the Leasing Belt away monthly to, I guess the easiest way to summarize it would be the best property performance in leasing for the prior month. And then we have something very complimentary on the social media side called our Social Icon Award. So we're going to have some team members that connect regularly with our site teams and the people that win those awards. So Carly, who's our social media manager, is actually going to interview our social icons. And then Dylan, who is our new outreach marketing specialist, will do our Leasing Bell interviews when we do those as well. So, and then we do have a couple other members of our marketing team, Farah and Emma, and they're going to help with analytics, promotion, just be, great production assistants. And we're here. I don't know what the future looks like. I mean, we're going to kind of see how this goes, but somehow we got dubbed to do the first one as the host. I think it's going okay.
Yeah, it's fun so far.
It's fun so far, he says. Well, let's transition a little bit. One of the things that you had mentioned earlier was we want to highlight company events. If we were to do something like this in the future, we would probably have to do it virtual interview style because I don't live here. I'm here this week because we had an event this week, and I want to have you talk a little bit about OBS. So maybe start with, what is the purpose of OBS? How long have we been doing it?
Yeah, so we just kind of shipped everyone off earlier today. We had, I should know the numbers better, but 60 to 70 probably that came in on Monday afternoon and all just left Thursday afternoon. The progression has been really fun to see. I think 2021 was our first, but it was just called Operations Summit or Property Management Summit. It was strictly focused on operational best practices and training and other things like that. And it was so small that we did it in our conference room on the 7th floor in our office. I want to say maybe 8 or 9 property managers, a couple regionals, and that was it. So it was more, honestly, like a brainstorming session within a room where we talked about stuff. I mean, there were some presentations and panels and things like that, but nothing like what it is today. And then I think the next year that just grew a little bit. It was 2 years ago that we kind of formed the name OBS to add in the budget standpoint. And that was as we added an asset management team and as the accounting teams got more and more involved in how are we building our budgets for the property for the upcoming year. So we aligned the timing with the budget building process kind of culminating at the OBS. So it's a time for our on-site management teams to connect with the financial leaders of our company on the asset management side, the investment side, the accounting side, to kind of marry and finalize what their academic year budgets are going to look like for the next year. So we split it up and we try to stagger it. So, feedback we've gotten is a full day of budgeting and looking at numbers is really draining, but also a full day of just all operational stuff can get a little dry as well. So I think we've done such a good job taking feedback from past events and building the itinerary to exactly what our employees want to see. So this year's event, almost virtually no presentation lecture. I mean, we used to get on stage and everyone had a PowerPoint. You just walked through the PowerPoint and then you left stage. People really crave interaction and collaboration. So for those that attended, almost every single session was a round table with a topic that you got to discuss with your peers and people within other departments. Or there was a panel of property managers or a panel of regional property managers that took a topic with questions and talked about that. There was interactive games. The accounting department did it was educational because it was talking about how to code expenses and how to code invoices, but they did it in a Jeopardy game style.
It was
so,
fun.
Yeah, I think it just keeps the engagement so much higher when you can keep the audience involved and you're not feeling like you're sitting in school for 4 straight days, basically. So, I mean, I feel like I've said it every summit, and I think it's true. Every summit we do, we get a little bit better at it, and we kind of reset the bar. And this one was really amazing to me. I just saw so much engagement in the room. It can get long. The days can be long. You're tired from the day before. I saw such a high level of, people were paying attention to what was going on, taking tons of notes, really diving into the interactive. I mean, the room was almost buzzing all day. And I think that was a lot to do with the content that we had and how we mixed up activities and things like that. And the presentations were just so informative and professional. I mean, all the presenters that put time into it did such a phenomenal job of building that content and making it really relevant and important for what we were trying to learn. So I rode down the elevator with Michael, one of the founders of Tailwind, at the end of yesterday, and he sat there almost all day and listened to all the sessions, and he's just like, I'm just amazed at what this has become. He's like, I actually sat here and felt like I was learning stuff, and I was watching the room and the level of engagement and excitement in the room. He was just so impressed with the whole summit, and I feel the same. I think it just went great. So, that says the kind of the training part of it, and then obviously we like to have a lot of fun when we get everyone together too. So our traditions at our summits, we usually do a team building event one night, and then we have an award ceremony and dinner on the alternate night. So this year, our team building event was a cake decorating contest,
which you did not participate in.
I was more like a floating commentator. Call me the play-by-play guy.
To clarify, though, you were put on a team, but then somehow were not on a team anymore. I think you should have given people the opportunity to see your cake decorating skills.
There's none to be had.
Okay.
So
got it.
I really felt like I lived into my role.
As MC-ish.
I heckled people. I interviewed people. I gave my opinion on what I was seeing, and that was really fun for me.
Was that your preparation for today? Getting yourself ready for something like this?
And truly, I was legitimately impressed. I thought, when I heard about this event, I'm like, this is going to be a disaster. I was picturing just terrible cakes that looked nothing like. So a professional baker built us a cake, and the game was you had to make it look as close to that cake as possible.
And the cake was sweet.
Intricate. I mean,
yeah,
different colors and frosting and swoops and whatever.
Swoops.
I don't know baking.
Many swoops.
But they were really good.
Yeah.
Picking the winner was really hard. I mean, there was 6 or 7 legitimately. I was like, I don't know how you would pick. So it was a lot of fun. And then, of course, last night we had our dinner and award ceremony, which is always such a fun night. It gets pretty emotional, and just to see the appreciation that all the employees have for being recognized and everyone being happy for each other, when someone does win that award. That's easy for me to say because I live in it, but we had 10 or 12 vendors that came to the event for our trade show this morning, and they're unattached from Tailwind from that level, and they sat in the back of the room, and like 6 or 7 of them told me after, they're like, we go to a lot of these summits for a lot of different companies, and no one does it like this. Like the level of, one guy told me, he's like, there's a lot of tears in that room, like almost on every single one, and I think that's just really cool and something that we do a really good job at of recognizing our employees and rewarding them for all their hard work. So
can I ask you a little bit to kind of further window into the awards? As you mentioned last night, a little bit of an unofficial tradition, ending the awards evening with a special award that you actually got to give away to somebody that means a lot to me too. But talk a little bit about, because I think that is a really key identifier of like what we place importance on as a company. It's a really good opportunity to highlight somebody that's making a huge impact. So I'm sure it's probably easy to breeze over because I feel like it gets a little emotional because it's somebody we both really care about. But I think you should talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we recognized Colleen for our Outstanding Leadership Award. Not everyone is eligible. Like a lot of the awards at OBS and at our Leasing Summit are site level awards, and there's stats and metrics that make it a lot easier to quantify, who's eligible or who could win. And there's just certain positions in the company and then certain level of seniority where you're not eligible for those awards anymore. But those people deserve their recognition too. And when it comes to Colleen specifically, she is someone that of almost anyone I know would not ever seek that attention or, ask for that recognition and things like that. And I think that's why it was so fulfilling and deserving for her because, she's been a property manager and been a regional property manager for Tailwind. When she moved into the director of corporate operations role, it's a vitally important role, but it is more behind the scenes, than what a corporate leasing manager, a regional property manager, or an on-site team member would get because it's, it's back of house stuff. It's process improvement, and policies and training. So it just doesn't come with maybe some of the same notoriety and forward-facing attention that you get when you pre-lease to 100% or you get 0% delinquency or your property is crushing their NOI budget and things like that.
Well, because you could argue for her team, if they're doing their job well, you don't know what they're doing because things are running very seamlessly.
Yeah, it's kind of the glue, behind everything that keeps it all together. So, it was a culmination of her career at Tailwind Group, which is almost 7 years old, and the various roles she's done. And yeah, just the level of success that, building a new department is really, really hard. You've done it yourself too. You're starting from scratch, and a lot of times it's because we don't have anything in place. So, you've got to figure out what works best, and there's going to be a lot of trial and error, and how do we put the right people in the right seats, and how do we, best support our sites. I think she's just done such a great job with the team of Emily and Mandy and Jericho and Kyla.
And now Corey and Todd.
Sorry.
You cannot forget Corey and Todd.
I would never. But yeah, they do so much for so many. And I think that's what I think about them. But again, it's not always with the front-facing, attention of like what leasing gets or what property management gets. So just wanted to make sure that was recognized it's for sure for her efforts, but for the team that she's built too, that it's one of those things where we never had it before. And now that you have it, it's like you couldn't exist without it.
Yep.
If they just weren't here anymore, I don't know, the world would seem to fall apart.
Nothing would work.
It wouldn't work. So yeah. Big shout out to Colleen. She's a great friend of mine and a great friend to a lot of people. I mean, she's just really cares about people and always puts them first. So
yeah. Well, another major moment, something that we've started doing more recently at summits is, the outside speaker component, and would love to kind of hear from your perspective how you felt about the outside speaker this year. I thought Sidra was great, really different energy than past speakers that we've had. And, some of the stories that she told, I thought were really interesting. And I thought she was a really good choice for our group, and curious what you thought.
Yeah, I thought she was great, and I've gotten a lot of feedback from a lot of people that felt the same way. And ironically, Cindra Kamploff, she's in our backyard. She lives in Mankato. She started her work in Mankato. She actually lives very close to me, like almost in my neighborhood, and it was the first time we'd ever met. So she's like a mindset coach, mental health coach. She's gotten avenues into, she works with professional sports teams, she works with Olympic teams, not on physical training, not on anything like that, but just all about your mindset and coaching yourself. It tied in, what I loved about it the most is it tied into all of the leadership stuff that we're trying to do internally, with learning what your voice is and how your voice works with other people. It's almost like she took that and knew that that's what we were doing, but she didn't. It was just all aligned with what we're trying to teach to our employees and to grow our employees. So, just talked a lot about self-reflection and not beating yourself up so much. We did a survey after the last speaker, what do you want to see from a future speaker? And we had a ton of feedback of, how do I not be so stressed at work? Or how do I not, if I get yelled at by a parent or a resident, how do I not take that home with me? Like, I think about it all night. It ruins my night at home with my family. And I thought she just hit on so many great points of, how to flush that stuff away and how to not blame yourself, how to focus on and celebrate your successes. And I think that was really impactful for our employees, because that is a lot of the stuff they deal with. We do have we're in a high stress job, you've worked on a property, I've worked on a property and been around a lot of properties. It's really easy to take stuff personally and not let it dictate, how your day's going to go and how your night's going to go or how your week's going to go. And I thought she just provided a ton of great tools and resources to help clear some of your mind and get through some of that stuff.
Well, and I think it's applicable to site staff and corporate staff.
Yeah.
I mean, site staff, you're having constant interaction with residents throughout the day, where you do have to be able to take an interaction for what it is and then move on to what the next interaction is going to be, because it's a completely different resident with a completely different set of needs. And then for those of us that are on the corporate side of things, especially for those of us that travel, you might be at one property dealing with something, and then you get a phone call about, hey, I need help with this, or hey, this just happened, and being able to not even compartmentalize, but take those instances for what they are, treat them as isolated incidents and move on is really important. So I think it's applicable across the whole spectrum of employees that we have in the different roles that they serve in. But I thought she was really great. Any other favorite memories from the week or takeaways you want to share?
Yeah, I think I talked about, the team building and the awards, and talked about various, games and presentations we had. One new thing we did at the summit this year was our vendor trade show. We have had vendors.
Actually, no. We did it at LMS a couple of years ago.
Oh, yeah.
At the Mall of America.
Okay, it was our first vendor trade show at OBS.
Thank you.
Sorry. It was just a lot more formal than what we had done in the past. We have had vendors attend before and, financially support and sponsor the event before. But we really geared it towards, they had their own dedicated time to meet with our teams. So they all had their own booth, and we had a program where all of our property managers, regional managers, spent dedicated time with them to talk to them about whether they use their product or service currently, to talk about how it's going, or maybe it was a vendor that we don't currently use them and they'd like to hear more about how they can support our properties and our site teams. And I stayed back to the end of the event and, said goodbye and thanked all of our vendors, and every single one of them said it was a really great experience, and we're very glad that they came, and basically, when is it going to be next year, because we'd love to be here. So that was really good to see, and I thought our teams loved it too. From what I could see, it was, again, very highly engaged and well attended. So
there's value on both sides. It's really good to get that face-to-face interaction with vendors that you already work with, of when you're emailing back and forth with somebody, to know who's on the other side of that. But then we do place a heavy emphasis on having property managers make those types of decisions for their properties because they know best. And so being able to meet directly with new vendors that could potentially solve problems for them in the future is also really important. So I would say across the spectrum, if it's vendors that maybe don't work with all of our properties or ones that do work with all of our properties, there's value in both of them being there. And I got to talk to a couple of them last night, and it was really nice to have them there. Shout out Alex for Opinion. He's one of my favorites, and well, you probably can't pick favorites, but it was nice. It was nice to get to talk to them.
Alex is my boy.
Yes. All right. Well, next we are going to talk about some exciting news. Recent acquisition in St. Louis. This one was especially fun for me. My first time working in the market, which was pretty cool. So I think it would be great if you discuss the opportunity a little bit, and then I'd love to talk a little bit about our rebrand process too, because that was a big thing that we did right after close.
Sure thing. Yeah, so middle of March, we closed on 3949 Apartments in St. Louis, which is indirectly associated with St. Louis University, a couple blocks from the school. It was funneled to us through a broker that we've worked with on several other deals and actually sold by an owner that we've bought. I think this would have been the 7th or 8th from that same owner. So the opportunity came to us just through past relationship with both that broker and owner. And honestly, from a traditional standpoint, it wouldn't be a property that we would have put a ton of interest or effort into pursuing. One, St. Louis University not being in a traditional Power 5 conference, which is where most of our student housing portfolio sits in. And two, just the size of the property is a little bit smaller than our typical. Most of our properties are 550 to 650 beds, whereas St. Louis was only 256. But as usual, we look at every opportunity, and Nick and his team, they dig in really heavy into the market, into the underwriting, and we are willing to pursue those secondary market opportunities if we can make the numbers work. And there are a lot of really strong non-Power 5 schools. We try not to take the investment approach that if it doesn't check that box, we'll never look at it. So St. Louis University has a really long history, over 100 years as a university. In recent years has actually seen pretty solid enrollment growth and has a really big focus on their graduate studies program and trying to increase that enrollment, which is especially aligned with this property because this property is it's actually all studios, 1-bedrooms, and 2-bedroom apartments, which mostly grad students are not looking to live in 4 or 5-bedroom apartments like maybe underclassmen would. So we saw a lot of strength and opportunity in the market, and from a property improvement standpoint, we usually try to focus on a value add play where we can improve amenities and aesthetic and reputation of the property. So in addition to putting our management team in place, which I believe has a value add component in itself just by how focused and intensive we are in the process and leasing and on-site management, we are going to undergo this summer a renovation of the leasing office and of the fitness center.
Probably the biggest leasing office I've ever seen.
It is huge.
I've worked in a lot of leasing offices, and I walked in and I was like, for less than 300 beds, this makes absolutely no sense, but I literally love it because it was so spacious. I mean, you could do like full resident events down there. It's so nice.
And it's actually a converted commercial space. So it's on the ground level, and there's 5 other commercial suites, so it is a mixed-use property. At some point during construction, they pivoted away from that as commercial space and they made it their leasing office. So I think that's why it's, so big.
Which I deeply appreciate because the amount of work that you have to do to overcome the obstacle for tours, especially walk-in tours, when your leasing office is not located on the ground floor I loved that. Obviously the space is super big, super high ceilings. There's a lot you can do with it. A lot of, offices to work through as well. Tons of space for packages, which I feel like is not always thought through. Super important. Kind of now really getting into the nitty gritty of on-site operations, but it can be really, really challenging if you're in a market with a lot of like drive-by or walk-by traffic if your leasing office is not located on the ground floor, for people to know where to go. And there's a lot of like a high potential for lost traffic when that happens. So I love the placement of that leasing office. It's definitely my favorite.
Yeah, right on the street. I mean, you can't miss it. So, and I think that excess space is going to allow us to repurpose that room to more functional. I mean, right now it's just big and it's kind of empty. So our capital improvement plan includes, bringing a coffee bar into that space and a kitchen and bar area where we can host those resident events and give away food and breakfast to our residents. And we want to drive interaction between our property manager, leasing manager, and our residents. So by putting those things right in front of the office, you're getting that everyday interaction. So if I have to come get a package, or if I want to get coffee, or if I want to grab breakfast, I'm going to be 5 feet from the office and right at the front desk. Right now, the setup is you can kind of sneak in and out without anyone ever seeing you. So that's something that, went into the design and thought of the renovation as well. And then, just general upkeep on the fitness center to modernize, get new equipment, just make everything a little bit more fresh and new, which is always exciting for residents. And with that, fresh and new, obviously we executed on a rebrand of the property from 3949. And I'll let you talk about that because that's definitely your world. And I'm just along for the ride when it comes to rebrand. So talk us through that process and what goes into the pre-planning, the execution, and what have you learned along the way? Because we've done this, God, I don't know, 10, 15,
a lot of times. Yeah. I mean, you guys have rebranded, renamed. I would say you've more renamed properties in the past. We did like our first, top to bottom rebrand process where we really thought through all of the aspects beyond just updating the signage in the fall of 2022 with Quarters Lincoln. And every single time we've learned something and been able to take the process and make it better, from, Quarters Lincoln to Landing Como to more recently Collegetown Fayetteville. We've learned a lot about, updating the signage and throwing a really fun party to really get people excited and also put them face to face with the on-site team, whether that's the team that came on board with us through the acquisition, or potentially we have some new team members in there. So that process has been a lot of fun. It engages our entire marketing team, members of our sales team, members of the operations team. I mean, the regional property managers play a big role. The on-site team plays a big role. The focal point of those events is we want to throw a launch party, and it's probably everybody's favorite part as well. And that's really an opportunity for us to show them what the new name means. I mean, you have essentially one opportunity to, if you're going to change the name, essentially press the reset button in the market with your residents, prospective residents, the university. And so we want to take full advantage of that opportunity and show them, here's our team. A lot of times you guys give us really great content in terms of, what we're going to do to the property to make it better. So we can kind of inject that into it as well to add excitement. And, and kind of the positive that comes out of it is we get to piggyback off of it a lot from a leasing perspective as well. We can really get them face to face with the team, depending upon, if they came over with us from the acquisition, or maybe we're, having some new team members come in to fill previously vacant positions, and get them, really immersed with the residents, get them really excited about the upcoming changes to the property, or just the fact that there's going to be a fresh management perspective. And then, we take that opportunity to get them really excited about continuing to live at the property or wanting to live with us in the future. We do activities. Actually, we got a lot of feedback for St. Louis that the residents really loved grocery bingo and trivia. So Carly, who is our social media manager, basically just played game show host all day and just hosted various activities that, we had people show up at 3:00 that didn't leave until we were like tearing the event down and we're like, go home, you can't stay here sort of situation. And that was really fun. So I have met so many incredible people and residents, being a part of a lot of those rebrands, and it's been really, really fun. I think it's great for leasing. It gives us, a leg to stand on, and is oftentimes a catalyst for huge, lease velocity moving forward. And I think it really allows us to exercise our full creativity and press the reset in such a sense that you only get to do it once. So I will say that landing St. Louis rebrand was a little bit stressful because we did it 1 week after close, and there's just certain things that you can't do until you get there. And we try to make the most of the due diligence trips in terms of figuring out what we need for signage, what new signage opportunities do we have, what do we need for promotional materials. All that stuff is really important. But some of it you legitimately can't do until you get there. The thing that I learned from this one, and I vividly remember calling you and telling you, was we won't be doing any more rebrands the week after close. It's such a big undertaking, but we have really incredible team members that made it happen.
I mean, the week after close, we used to do them the day of close.
We have, well, technically, yeah. I mean, in most cases we do, and then we do the launch party about a week later.
We get the email that what funds have been wired, and we rip all the signs down.
I would say that's probably your favorite part, is we take all the old signs down, and actually that's probably what I remember most from this past closing in St. Louis, was just watching you walk around and just look at papers and then toss them in the trash and just
I love cleaning.
We don't need this anymore. So I absolutely love rebrands. It's got all the characteristics for me of like housing fairs, which was another thing that I really loved when I was traveling a lot in prior positions. Really good opportunity to meet a lot of people and get them really excited about your product. And I think that what we've developed as our rebrand process mirrors that in a lot of ways. And it's been really fun to just like test our creative limits, I would say.
Yeah, I think about it like what I said earlier about the corporate operations department. We used to do it, and I don't know how we did it with how you guys do it now, right? Like, I can't even really remember how we did it. You said it probably best, that we just changed the name, and that was about all we did.
You renamed it, I rebranded it.
Got it.
Yes.
Dude, there's a big difference.
It is, though. I mean, we do everything from, we have a whole social media plan that Carly puts together to tease the name change, and then also the launch party. We have a communication plan that we put together to send to residents and prospects to let them know what's happening, when the party's going to be. You know, we order limited run swag items that you can only get if you come in that event to drive that interest. And then we usually do like our larger promotional restock after that event. So everything that we have on display, you can only get there. We do games. Like I said, Carly's, been our game show host for a lot of that. And goodie bags on a campus and personalized invites to residents' doors. And it's top to bottom, and it engages everybody in the process, but it's really, really fun.
Pretty sure I did all that.
No, I've never seen you do that in the history of ever, but okay. Not that level of attention to detail. But anything else you want to say on St. Louis before we move on?
No, we're really excited, as we are with all acquisitions, to really dig into the market and get the team onboarded and trained, execute on the renovation, which draws a ton of excitement with residents and prospects. And there's a transition period with every acquisition. I mean, you would love to say on the day you buy it, the next day you're fully going with your leasing plan and your marketing plan, and all the residents are happy. I mean, there's a lot of hurdles and things to get through, and after that smoothing out period, then it really does start to get fun, and the managers on site get comfortable with how does Tailwind do things and get into the flow of what the expectations are. So I'm really excited for this summer to get engaged with that team and finish up the lease up.
Yeah. I remember a conversation that we had, I think right around the time that I was getting more involved with the marketing team. You said, like, on both the sales and marketing side, you wanted to see like a much faster ramp up period of like, we've closed on the property and we're ready to start, leasing and marketing and events and those sorts of things. And I would say we've definitely gotten better. I think there's still, a lot we can do to really hit the ground running from that acquisition date. But I feel like we've made tremendous progress.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, the next thing that I want to talk a little bit about is another conference type opportunity that will be in the same place at the same time, which doesn't happen all that often. Tailwind is sponsoring Roy Hall Jr.'s Leadership Conference next month, and I think that's something you and I are both equally excited about. And I think we should talk a little bit about how we met Roy, why we would sponsor an event like this, because it's hosted in Columbus, Ohio, where I'm from. And I think we deduced when we were talking yesterday that you're like the only non-Ohio speaker. So like how this all came to be, I think, is a really interesting thing. So I'd love to talk a little bit of kind of about how I met Roy, how you got introduced to Roy, and then want to talk to you a little bit about why we would sponsor something like this, if you're good with that.
Yeah.
So I actually heard Roy speak and then he actually had his first leadership conference about a month later, which I attended with Jackson, who's one of our property accountants. He was a property manager at the time. And that was really cool because I think I just emailed it to you and Lane and was like, hey, there's a local leadership opportunity I would love to take advantage of. And you were like, you should go and you should take Jackson with you. And I just thought that was really cool. And so I spent the entire day with Jackson at Roy's leadership conference, and it was just one of the best experiences that I've had. Just the diversity of speakers and the topics that they spoke on and the cadence of the event, just like everything was really great. And, I obviously play a big part in the LMS, the Leasing and Marketing Summit planning, which happens in the fall. OBS happens in the spring. And it just kind of kept coming back to me after going to that event. Like, I think Roy would be a really good speaker for LMS when we do take those opportunities to bring in somebody from the outside, which I think is super important for our teams to hear from somebody else and somebody that's really going to energize them and pump them up. And so I brought the idea of having Roy speak to you. And what were your thoughts when I had kind of presented that to you and you were looking through like who Roy was and some of his speaking clips and stuff like that? Kind of what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, outside speakers are super impactful at summits. People love to hear from other perspectives. I mean, we could take his script, have someone else read it word for word, and it wouldn't make half the impact coming from someone else. So that's why I think outside speakers are important. But equally important to us at Tailwind is that speaker aligns with our core values and, how we think about things. So, you want to do some due diligence on the speaker. So, when you first brought it up, I think Lane and I happened to be having a trip to Columbus at some point, and you're like, well, why don't we just meet up for lunch or meet him? And
he didn't eat lunch with us that day. He just came and talked to us.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Bad memory.
No, I'm mostly making fun of him, like, in case he hears this at any point. Because I was like, hey, let's do lunch. And he was like, yes. And then I was like, do you want lunch? And then he was like, oh, I don't eat around this time he's a really fit dude.
Intermittent fasting, probably.
Yes, probably. But
yeah, it was a really quick, comfortability for both Lane and I. You kind of know when you meet someone what their energy is and, why I think for us, he told the story of why he does what he does, what drives him to, the things he does with his nonprofit and the things he does with Ohio State football, just his background and history of what led him to here. It wasn't a hard sell at all. After meeting him. So we were really excited about that. And obviously he kind of like tore the house down at our summit. We talked about Cinder earlier. They're both equally great, but the delivery and,
very
methods so different. And they talked honestly about some of the same things, but, Roy is great for some and Cinder might relate more to some others, but super energetic. You will not be able to not pay attention if you ever hear him speak. He's very captivating, kind of draws the room instantly with his presence and energy that he brings. So he did such a great job at our summit. We were really excited to have him. And what I think is really, really cool about Roy, it wasn't just, obviously he got paid to come to our summit and, it's part of the job that he does. But he has stayed connected with a lot of us. He still texts me from time to time, see how you're doing. I know you two connect. I know he's talked to Lane and emailed with Lane. Like, it's something like he wants to be a part of what Tailwind does moving forward, not just I came for 90 minutes and we'll probably never talk again, which, can be the case when you hire in an outside speaker sometimes.
I would say I've been really impressed with the effort to stay connected. Like, I have felt really, that I could reach out to him and like, I'm not bothering him. I think you feel the same and Lane feels the same. And a lot of the content that I've seen him put out from more recent speaking engagements that he's had too, I'm just like, wow, like this stuff just has such an impact on me and on a micro, like in that moment of my day scale, which I think is really cool. So he and I actually connected towards the beginning of the year, about his leadership conference this year, and if it made sense to get more of our team members there this year than just our local team, which would be myself, Jackson, who's a property accountant that lives in Columbus, and our on-site team at the Griff. And then he had asked about, speaking opportunities and asked if you wanted to do it. And I think when I first brought it to you, you thought I was kidding. But I think it's really cool. Yeah. And I'm really excited for you. So what are your thoughts on, because it's not like one of our summits.
Right.
Like you have to engage an entire room of people. It's going to be totally different.
Yeah. Well, when you first texted me, I was honestly confused. Like, I'm like, I don't understand. Like,
I think you actually said, I don't understand, verbatim.
So, I guess I was very humbled because, I know I talk in front of our company a lot, and am I a leader? Yes, I'm a leader, but I've never really thought of myself like that, like where I would get in front of a room of people I don't know and talk about leadership. Getting in front of a room of people I don't know and talking about real estate and student housing, that doesn't really make me feel any type of nervousness or like, am I qualified to do that? Because that's just what I do every day. So I think a lot of what I think about from leadership is just what we do every day. And I never really think about crafting it into how could I send this message to people I haven't met before. So, truthfully, I was extremely humbled. I still am that he would even consider me and think of me in that light. But I wanted to pursue the opportunity because I think it's a great opportunity to challenge myself and, get outside of my comfort zone a little bit and hopefully, inspire some people as to, how we've grown Tailwind and how we've built the culture that we have and how do we engage our team and how do we grow our team. So I'm really looking forward to representing Tailwind on that platform and, relating to the sponsorship of the event. Roy reached out and asked if we'd be interested. So I shot over an email to the owners of Tailwind and the rest of the senior leadership team, just explaining what the conference was and what it was about. And they had all met Roy, from the Leasing Summit.
Yeah. And
it was really cool. I got reply, like 3 straight yeses, like no question. And, there was context to that where he's amazing. He did a great job at our summit. He's he's the kind of person that Tailwind is like he embodies what we want our employees to embody. So it was a very, very quick and easy answer from our senior leadership team and owners, which, I think was really cool because that shows that he made an impact on us. And, hopefully through whatever we do at the conference, we can reciprocate that back to his audience.
Yeah, that's really cool. Have you started preparing? And I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. More as like an accountability type thing. Have you started preparing?
I have a little bit. For those that know me well, this would not surprise. But for those that don't, I thrive under really, really last minute pressure. I prepare for very little. I get a weird high off of it. I don't know what it is, if it's down to the last minute or making it up as I go or freestyling. That's not something I'm going to be able to do here. It's going to be too many people and people that I'm not as comfortable with. So Roy and I have connected twice, and he's kind of given me an outline for just based on what he's seen from me and what I do at Tailwind and how I interact with people. He actually kind of gave me a framework of, what he thinks would be a good topic. And I thought it was really good. So we kind of sketched out an outline, and now I just need to fill in the middle. So I've got 30 days. That would be a lot of preparation time for me.
I would really hope there's a couple run throughs.
There'll be a couple dry runs. Yeah.
Got it.
That'll be good.
What are your thoughts on hearing some of the other speakers? Because I will say, I went the first year and he had, Debbie Penzone, who is a major female entrepreneur in Columbus, and Ryan Day, the head football coach at Ohio State, and Ohio State football alumni, they did a panel, and that was really cool. And like I said earlier, the diversity of speakers and, hearing their stories and, what they've been armed with through the experiences and the challenges that they've overcome is just really cool. And, this year they have Jim Tressel, they have Gene Smith, who's former athletic director at Ohio State. So again, we talked about this, but I think you're like the only non-Ohio speaker, but it is important because this is how we, maintain that relationship with Roy and for a lot of other reasons. But, what are your thoughts as you, I guess, stack up the competition of other speakers? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll go back to humbled to be in that room. Those are super accomplished people with great track records, and they're kind of like Columbus, Ohio legends too. So I guess I even have a higher probably expectation because who's this guy from Minnesota and why is he here? So that's great. I hadn't thought about that actually. I'm obviously a huge football fan, so I know, watched Ohio State when Jim Tressel was coaching, and I just love the coach mindset when it comes to leadership of accountability and, teaching and getting the most out of your players, or in this case, your team members or employees. I saw there's a former military leader in there, which probably the most common leadership material that I read up on are, military background. I find a lot of value in some of those core principles of disciplines and process and structure. So I'm also really excited for that.
That's interesting because I don't feel like you run your team in a militaristic style
Well,
whatsoever.
I'm glad to hear that. Every leadership book you read, you're really just plucking little things you like from it. That's how I do it, at least. I would never take a book and say, I'm just going to do everything I see here. And I just find them interesting. It doesn't necessarily.
I'm just running through this.
If you want me to be a little bit more militaristic.
No, I think that's where we probably butt heads the most, is when you're like, I am going to exercise some leadership here and steer you one direction or the other. And I'm like, please don't. Yeah. Just let me do my thing. Yeah. Well, I'm really excited for you, and I think it's going to be really great. I'm also very excited to be there again and get to see some of these other speakers, because it's, for the most part, a different list than it was the last time that I went. And I just think it's so cool, the way that we back up, the emphasis that we put on leadership, from that experience of you and Lane just saying, go, we don't know who this guy is, what this local leadership opportunity is. You guys were just like, go and do it. No questions asked, which I thought was really cool. I know we even typed up a summary and sent it to you guys, and you engaged with us back and forth in some emails about it, which I really enjoyed and thought was cool. So from that to then take something and, build that relationship with Roy and invest in his event and these people that we don't know that aren't our employees, I just think that it's really cool.
Yeah. I don't think you can ever emphasize or underutilize leadership development and training. You can do a lot of it for free, but there's so many great opportunities, across the country, online, virtual, for leadership development. And I can't really remember a time where a member of my team has asked, like, hey, I'd love to go to this conference or attend this webinar or go to this course, where I would say no. Because if you're taking the initiative to say, I want to get better and I want to learn more, like, it would be kind of crazy for me to stomp that out. Unless the costs are exorbitant, or I don't really think it would apply to something that would help you in your career. But that's something that I think is super important to continue to grow and, develop the leaders in our company.
Yeah. It is definitely going to be different speaking. I feel like our employees give you a little bit of a pass when you're late or admittedly unprepared. So anyways, I won't dwell on it.
That's like longer. The third time I think she's brought up like how intimidating
I just really want to make sure that it's going to be good. But anyways,
you can have a little faith. We'll be good.
It'll be good. I think we're coming near the end, unless you have anything else that you want to make sure that we touch on.
No, this has been super fun. Truthfully, I have been on a couple podcasts before, but they were very much more, I was being interviewed about, specific questions, and I had them ahead of time. This has been fun because I'm just having a conversation with you, and we do this multiple times a week, so it wasn't unnatural. And hopefully, for those listening, they learn some things, and, they get, like we talked about at the beginning, kind of a look behind the curtain of what goes on at Tailwind with our people and our achievements and things that we're working on. And I think this is going to be a really fun thing. We we do moving forward.
I think so too. I remember when I called you like a couple weeks ago and I was like, hey, we've been going around the table about this, and I think where we ultimately just landed is they want us to do it. And I just kind of threw together, an outline, and you were on board and everybody was on board. And we just kind of said, we're just going to do it. And then we're going to put it out there and we're going to see how it goes. And we're going to use that response to frame up the future of it. So, whether it's additional opportunities for you and I to co-host this together, obviously we want to put a big focus on bringing in other voices, other faces, because we are, I would say, pretty in tune with, the general, like what's going on across all the aspects of the business. I mean, it's just so much better to hear it directly from those doing it every day. So I would say this is one time where I am okay with not being prepared in what comes next or being able to share what will come next. And we really just want to hear from others, what did you like, what did you not like? And then we're going to use that to shape the future of it. But it was obviously really fun to get to do the first one with you. So thanks for agreeing to it without really knowing what we were getting ourselves into.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Well, we'll kind of leave it there. I think if you have, questions, suggestions for what we do for the future, you can just email us, marketing@tailwindgroup.com, and we will hopefully get this out there really soon and then start working on the next one. So thanks again for joining today. Thanks for listening to the pilot, and that's it, I think. Let's go. We did it.
Good work.
Woo!